Hi everyone, this is Andrew Murchie here with an exclusive tutorial for AE Tuts Plus. In today's tutorial we're going to be working on some stereoscopic 3D craziness, and so it'd really be handy if you had a pair of red and cyan glasses to hand. If you don't have those, there are various places online that will send you a pair for free, including Enhanced Dimensions, that is my blog. The kind of thing we're going to be doing today is something I'm sure as motion graphics professionals you've been asked many times. We're going to have some eyeballs come flying out of a kind of space, maybe not space, a kind of weird vortex tunnel in 3D. Now, I'm sure you've probably done these before. However, I'm going to cover the techniques that I would use for doing something like this. It is obviously something that comes up very much in day-to-day life if you're making a film about flying eyeballs. Okay, so to tackle this, we're going to tackle this in a couple of stages. First stage is we'll obviously create all the individual elements, then we'll get them into the 3D scene, as in a standard 3D scene within After Effects, and following that we'll then do the stereoscopic work. Now, we're not going to cover all the bases of creating something stereoscopic, but we will go through the various options once we get to that stage. I'm actually going to use my own 3D rig, which for those of you who are AE Tuts Plus subscribers, you'll be able to download the master file that's got the ED3D rig that I've actually used for most of my 3D projects. So you'll be getting that free of charge. And if you're not a subscriber, I think you need to ask yourself why not now, because that in itself is surely worth subscribing for. Anyway, enough of that. One of the things I'll mention is when you need stereoscopic glasses, I will pop up a little icon on screen so you know maybe to put them on. I'll obviously be mentioning to put them on, but we'll keep it on screen as well. So with that all settled and without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, so as this is going to be a stereoscopic project, I'm going to start off by opening up my stereoscopic rig that I already have. As I said, if you're going to be if you don't have this file, there's a variety of other ways that you can create the 3D effect, and we'll cover them when we get to that point. So I'll just pop in here, and this is my blank rig with just a couple of layers in it for practice purposes. So I'll remove them, and I'll tell you what, we'll leave that one there. There's no problem leaving that, because we'll just use that as our background. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create that tunnel effect. So we'll start by doing a new composition, and I generally work a little bit larger than HD, simply because when we're doing the 3D effect and we'll be moving images left and right, we need a bit more than 3D. Actually, height wise we don't need any more, but horizontally we do. So I generally work something like 2200 by 1080, and that gives me plenty to play with. I'm only going to make this 10 seconds long. We don't want it's not a massive chase sequence we're doing, just a little animation here. So we'll go okay, that's fine. I'm working in PAL, so everything's 25 frames a second here. Let's just switch to having one view for the time being. Okay, so we're going to create this tunnel effect. So first thing we'll do is we'll create a new solid. Sorry, doesn't really matter what color that is. I prefer to work on black, just feel more comfortable that way. There we go, nice big black solid. Okay, now the bit we're going to do now is create the sort of swirling cloud effect that will then get turned into a circle later on. So we'll go into effects, and what we're going to do is we're going to add some fractal noise to it. Now at the moment, there you go, that, you know, I'm sure you've seen many tutorials where fractal noise is used. It's great, but in this instance what I want to do is I want to create that effect currently of it going up the screen. So let's try something like, in many ways I sort of mess around. Spline is quite nice, but it might be a bit extreme. The real stuff we need to do in here is in the transform, right? We're going to not have uniform scaling. This is how we're going to get it to look like it's stretching up the screen. So if we take this down almost to its minimum width, and then we'll make the height, take the height up. So that's quite a nice effect. Really, this is pretty much up to you what you want. You know, linear, actually soft linear. No, I do definitely quite like spline. I don't like it to be too contrasty. You can get all sorts of different effects. You know, that would be, I think that would be way too extreme, but again, it depends what you want to create. So let's just keep it with dynamic progressive. Let's go with that, and spline. And effectively that's us got the starting point for what we want to do. Now for the for it to actually animate, we want to change this offset point. So we'll start here at the beginning. Just click your stopwatch to get a keyframe, and then let's drag along to the end of the thing, 10 seconds, and we'll make this something like 5,000. So that should offset it. Now what you'll see, let's scrub back first, what you'll see is as we go along time, the fractal noise is coming swooshing along. Now I'm wondering, is that coming? That's coming towards us. I think we might want to try that going away from us instead of coming towards us. Yeah. Okay, so now we've created part of this tunnel that we require. What we'll do is we'll make another black solid layer, new solid. Again, we'll keep black. We'll go OK at that. And what we're going to do here is we're going to mask this off, because you'll see when we actually go to spherize this to make the tunnel effect that we need this to create effectively the dark dot in the distance that is the end of the tunnel. We'll just feather that, so we've got that selected. Press F for feather, and maybe something like, I don't know, 30. Nah, need a lot more than that. Let's do, you can get quite a nice effect here by just making that soft edge, and especially with the contrast of it. Yeah, that's really nice. Now the more you adjust this, by the way, the larger the sort of central hole of the tunnel will appear. So I'm going to leave it something like that. I mean, we'll mess with this as we go. Alright, so that's not bad. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And I shouldn't have really called this comp one. Let's call this fractal noise, just so we know exactly what it is. Fractal noise. Okay, excellent. Right, that's the beginning of the tunnel. Now let's do the next stage, which is, we'll take it into our scene here. So we'll go to our master scene. Now when you're working in 3D, generally my approach is to build a master scene and then work out the left and right views. In this instance, because I've got a pre-built rig, the left and right views are kind of pre-prepared for me. However, you'll see later on you can do this different ways, so let's just carry on. So we'll pop the fractal noise into there. As you can see, that all looks good. Again, let's click back to one view, and let's get this to fit so we can see what it looks like. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to turn this into a tunnel. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go into distort, and we're going to do polar coordinates. Sorry, I said spherize earlier, but we're going to go polar coordinates. Now what you'll see is we will completely flip this round. However, we need to switch rect to polar, and boom, there you go. What you actually have there is also, just by the way, a lovely iris for an eye, which is exactly how I created the iris that we'll be using for those flying eyeballs. So there's just another handy little use for this, and obviously you can colorize it so you can do whatever you wish. So there we go, we've now got the beginning of our tunnel, and all we're going to do, although we're going to, in fact I might as well put it in 3D space now. We are going to move it quite far back in 3D space though, so what I will do is, for the time being, just to be able to view the scene, we'll just zoom this up. For the time being, we've got our tunnel happening, so let's go ahead and make our eyeballs. Flying eyeballs, as we said before, generally on a day-to-day basis, you know, you can never go wrong by having an extra flying eyeball around. I'm going to go into the assets that I have. Now these assets are both from a collection that we do called Rock Candy, and these and many other crazy, mostly music-based stuff, although this is kind of quite psychedelic assets are in that. So this technique actually was an old technique I saw from Andrew Kramer many years ago, making an eyeball. This particular texture, as you can see here, is based on pretty much that kind of fractal. I think it gives you such a nice effect for an iris, and then the background is just some, again, is also a fractal noise thing, and this gives a pretty good effect. So let's make an eyeball. We'll make an eyeball by, again, let's do a new composition. We'll just keep it that size, and we'll call it flying eyeball. Okay, and we'll pop our eyeball texture into there. We won't put the wings in there just for the moment. Okay, so we've got our texture in there, and what we'll go into is effect and perspective and CC sphere. Boom, we have an eyeball. Beautiful. Render full, that's fine. At the moment we're not going to do anything more to that, we'll just leave it. You might want to adjust the light. If you were in a scene where the light was maybe in a different location, you could do that. There's all sorts of stuff we could do, but for the moment I'm just going to leave it just as it is. We don't really need to do an awful lot. Back in our assets here, we'll pop a wing down. In fact, let's make both these 3D. We'll take the wing, move over here. Again, depending on how your eyeballs fly, you might want to do this slightly differently. Get as creative as you like. Also, the size of wing in comparison to that eyeball, you know, sometimes you're not really sure. Let's move that back. One other thing, let's just switch the eyeball off for a second. We'll change the anchor point to really somewhere around the edge of the wing, because that makes most sense. Okay, and then eyeballs back on. Now we're going to be flapping the wing a bit, so I just want to make sure that we actually have a bit of space behind it so it doesn't get in the way. And yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Okay, so let's duplicate that one, and we are going to flip this so that it is now on the opposite side. There we go. We'll go flip horizontal. Beautiful. We can move that over. Again, the wings, you know, flying eyeball wings don't tend to be absolutely symmetrical, so if you do get it slightly wrong, I'm sure it'll be okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make this wing flap. We'll hit R for rotation. And I think first things first, let's set the wing the way we think it's going to be good. So let's take the X rotation. Now the X rotation will perhaps put a little bit of that kind of angle on it. Yeah, that's quite nice. Again, you know, this isn't a science. This is, well, it's a bit of a science, but there you go. So we'll flap it up there. So that's a quite high back. Let's go for something like 40. Z rotation. We'll go back a little bit. I haven't really studied birds properly, so I feel a bit of a fraud doing this. Let's jump to, let's say, something like 20 seconds. Sorry, 20 seconds. That would be a very slow maneuver for this poor bird. And sorry, let's jump back 10 frames, which I do just, by the way, by holding shift and page up or page down. That jumps 10 frames a time in the timeline from where you are. And what we're going to do is we'll now change the X rotation. So let's bring it. Actually, we won't change it too much. Y rotation is what we will really want to change, because we're going to bring the wing down now. And the Z rotation we might want to do as well, so we're going to bring it down something like that. I don't want to change that too much. Okay. And let's how's that look? Yeah. Perhaps if I was a better animator for birds' wings, I'd be able to do a better job on that. But you know, we can finesse it, and we'll do some easing on that shortly. Okay, so next we're going to do similar but the opposite for the other wing. So instead of me just copying and pasting, what I'll do is I will just quickly set these. So I think the X will still be 30, because we don't want to overly change that. The Y will be minus 40, I believe. That's correct. And the Z rotation, I think, will also be minus 5 still. No. Sorry, I've got that wrong. We're around 5. Okay, that's beautiful. Here comes the 1016 flight from London. And let's set the keyframes for that. Jump along 20 seconds, set the keyframes there again, jump back 10, so I keep saying seconds, frames. And again, we'll do the change here as we did there, so we'll change this to something like 26. We'll change the Y rotation to 32, give us that, and we'll change the Z to minus 31. Like, oh no, sorry. So I've done that again. 30. There we go. Okay, so we've got the bird's wings flapping. Yeah. Well, I say birds. It's a flying eyeball. So let's not get confused here between wings and flying eyeballs. Okay, so it's animating. What we want to do next is let's select all those keyframes and hit F9 just to give it a nice easy ease. Oh, there's another plane coming. They're coming thick and fast this morning. And it's a Sunday morning too, you know, you'd think they would take the day off. Right, so the next thing we've got to do is we want to make sure that these will loop, because at the moment they're only doing one cycle of the wing flapping. And what we would have if that happened would be an awful lot of flying eyeballs falling out of the sky. So we're going to do a little bit of scripting here, but without actually scripting. I've seen a lot of tutorials on scripting that don't actually seem to cover this very, very basic way of doing stuff, which, again, for me, if there's a relatively easy way to do it, then, you know, why not use it? It's built into the system. So by holding Alt and left clicking, we bring up the script, and I'm just going to use this pop-up menu, and I can use loop out duration, cycle duration equals 0. Click that. And that is actually going to loop the effect. So I make sure I'm going to copy this now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to control click on all the others and just paste in exactly the script, because that is going to give us exactly what they want. They're all going to loop, and we will have some very, very nice flying eyeballs before you know it. So let's have a little scrub through. Yep, that looks good. I'll give it a little play. So yeah, there we go, flying eyeballs. And let's go into the... So I like to tidy up after myself. We'll go into the eyeball texture and we'll look at the CC sphere effects. Now what we want to do is we want to effectively rotate this. So if we look at the rotation, we want to rotate the X, Y and Z axis, because what we want is, while this eyeball is flying around, if we do this, we want it to be looking up, down, all around. But how we'll do is we'll just do a very basic wiggle. We'll start it off from 0, so I will Alt click it, and we'll go into the effect that's opened up, and we'll just do a little wiggle effect. I'm sure most of you know wiggle by now, and we'll make it happen let's say 1 times a second, and this is the X rotation. So let's make it, and this is it looking up and down. Let's give it maybe, I don't know, 20 degrees. I'll give it quite a lot of area to look at. Fine, so I'll be happy with that. Then again, we'll alt click the Y, and we'll do the same here. Wiggle, maybe. We'll still keep it to once a second, and we'll maybe make that 10 degrees. And then finally down here, let's alt click the Z rotation and make this wiggle, and let's make it wiggle twice a second perhaps, and again let's maybe 15 degrees. Don't know exactly how this is going to look, but let's give it a little play again, and there we go. Nice. Now we've got an eyeball that's looking all around, moving around and looking up and down and left and right. Tell you what, let's not bother with the Z. Let's try it with just the X and Y. Beautiful. Yep. So it looks up. Tell you what, let's adjust this to something like 30. So that gives them a much wider view left and right. Yeah, well, that's nice. There we go. Now my eyeball's really having a good old look around as he flies. Yep. Now I'm happy with that. Good. Okay, so we've got the right figures in there. Right, so just to quick recap, we've created our fractal noise as our tunnel. We've now created our flying eyeball, and we put the fractal noise in the scene. So the next stage we have is to let's start getting some flying eyeballs in here. Okay, now this is in 3D. Let's switch to 2 views now, because we're going to be placing these eyeballs in 3D space. Our fractal noise tunnel, we're going to move towards the back. Now, the one big issue with doing anything in 3D is the distance between the camera and the closest object and the furthest object can be a little bit tricky. What you effectively want, the general rule of thumb, is that the closest object should be no nearer than 30 times the distance between the cameras. Now, this is a really important figure, and again, if you were filming, that would be a really huge deal, because you wouldn't want to get it wrong. We're quite fortunate working here in After Effects, because we've got virtual cameras. We can set up the whole scene, get everything animating, and then we can actually adjust the cameras. Also, once you've built the scene, if you're because you're using virtual cameras, you can effectively render the scene out with varying degrees of distance between the camera. I don't simply mean animated, but I mean actually you could do one that would work better on a smaller screen and one that would work better on a larger screen. However, these are getting into some of the more complex areas of stereoscopic theory, which I'm not necessarily going to cover within this tutorial. We're just going to build what we've seen. So I'm going to move that fractal noise tunnel to the background, and again scale up so that it's filling that whole scene there. Now we'll bring in some flying eyeballs. I think we're just going to have 3 in this scene, so there we go. Pop him to 3D, scale him down, because if you see where he is in relation to the background, he's actually a lot closer to the camera. So let's do that, and what we will do is let's first set up roughly where he's going to be. Again, there's no science to placing flying eyeballs. I should say that they are an organic life form. Sorry if I'm going on, it's just something, it's almost something to talk about while you're adjusting things in and out. Now we'll maybe work to around about the front of the screen there for the 3D space. Okay, we've got one flying eyeball. What I'll do is I'll bring in a second one. Oh, sorry, I'll duplicate him, and I will move him back. Let's move him over there a bit. Maybe up a little bit. I want to be able to see him. Maybe even up higher. So we've got a little squadron of flying eyeballs here. And duplicate him again. Move one over here. Further back. Up a bit. Now what you'll notice in 3D as well is things just slightly overlapping or getting close to each other works pretty well. Probably should have made the flying eyeballs a little bit longer in the timeline, but I'll just do this. What I'm doing is just offsetting them a little bit in the timeline there, just so that their wing flapping isn't the same. It kind of looks odd if they'll flap exactly the same. Let's take that fractal noise. We'll go back to one view now just for the moment. Take that fractal noise up so we can see. Now we're almost done with our 2D bits. What we'll do is, I'll tell you what, let's call this animation. We'll just do it for 9 seconds roughly. Okay, so we're not having to loop them again. What we'll do is, we've now effectively got most of our 3D scene set up. What I think we'll do is, I think I've got a slight motion on this camera already. We'll leave the camera just where it is at the start. What we'll do is we'll quickly make these eyeballs fly into the scene. So our front flying eyeball, this guy, let's have a look. Let's bring it into what? Again, let's maybe do it at 1 second. We'll have the position of all of them roughly in place. Jump back maybe 20 frames and let's go to 2 views and we'll actually drag them off into the background. At the moment they're going behind that the 3D tunnel graphic, but what's actually going to happen is that's not going to be visible in this scene, in the final one, so we can keep moving them further back, as it's sometimes impractical to move them too far back. I actually often put in a bit of a scale as well, so I'm just going to hit S for scale and we'll maybe go 5 frames, get them to the actual size, and then go back and scale them to 0. This just helps for the effect. We'll maybe push that fractal noise back just so for our preview purposes we can actually see where it is. Put it back there, scale it up. It's quite a big one. That's fine. Okay, now let's take the flying eyeballs and you can see they'll all come flying in. There we go, they all come flying in. Now let's just do, let's do an easy ease in for that, and easy ease out. Again, just make them look a little bit more organic. You don't want everything to be stopping and starting all the time like that. It's got to have some organic look to it. Easy ease in and easy ease out. Okay, that's those. And then the last thing we're going to do here is let's adjust the timing. So we'll bring him in. We'll actually make them fly a little bit different. There we go. So what that'll do is just offset the time a little bit, just so they actually fly in individually. They're not one lump of flying eyeball. Okay, so we're nearly there with what I want to do. We'll probably do some colouring work before we actually start doing the stereoscopic thing. We could keep them this colour if you wanted. It's entirely up to you. Whatever you do, obviously, when you're adjusting the color, what you do want to do is you want to make sure that everything in the scene is, feels like it's got the same color. At the moment, actually, in black and white here, the whole scene does look fine. It doesn't look bad at all. Let's add a little color though to that background. So So we've got the background selected, and we'll go into Effect, color collection. I can't speak properly. Color correction. Let's try hue and saturation. We could just sort of colorize it a little bit. Again, this is entirely up to you if you want to do this or not. And I don't think I'm teaching you anything that's particularly outrageously different. Apart from I'm teaching you to click the wrong thing. The one thing you probably want to do is, if you are using red and cyan glasses, steer clear of strong reds and strong blues. There is ways, obviously, to color correct it, but we're not going to cover that here either. It's too much to cover in one go. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that color. That's really nice. Yeah. I was going to do it kind of purple, but I'm liking this one now. Anyway, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to adjust all the colors here. I'll leave it to you. If you want to adjust the colors further, you adjust the colors further. Let's maybe go into the flying eyeball here. We'll do the sort of same thing, hue and saturation. I could colorize it, or alternatively I can just adjust the saturation and move the colors. As you can see, when I move it, when I'm rotating this around, you can see the colors, you know, whether they're in the right range or not. I'll move it something like that. Sorry, let's zoom into that a little bit so we can actually see. You know, we don't want greens. See, just a touch of that brown. Oh, that's really nice. I like that. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy and paste that onto the other flying eyeballs. See how they look. Yeah, I like that. That kind of all fits. So you see, we're in the same color range there. So we haven't got anything that's going to be too unpleasant. And also, we've steered clear of the bright, strong reds and cyans. So we should have something that works very nicely. Let's just make sure that we've got motion blur on for everything. We'll jump back into the flying eyeball. Make sure we've got motion blur on. We don't need it on the fractal noise, but definitely in here I like a bit of motion blur to make sure that it's all looking nice and neat. So before we start doing the actual stereoscopic work, let's do one final thing, which is I've already got a camera dolly and camera set up here. I'm just going to give this a slight wiggle just to make everything feel, make the whole scene feel a little bit more organic. And again, you might want to do it to the individual eyeballs as well, so each one of them's got a slight kind of weave to it. So let's look at the camera dolly, and we'll look at the position on that. And I'm actually going to just do it on the position. I'm going to wiggle that. And we'll wiggle that maybe once a second and up to 5 pixels. So I'm going to change the flying eyeball position, I'm going to add a wiggle to the position. And again, I'm just going to do something like wiggle once a second. In fact, no, let's make it twice a second, and we'll do up to 20 pixels maybe. The flying eyeball here, position. I must admit to being a bit of a wiggle addict. It just gives everything just much more organic-y feeling, and certainly something that I enjoy. So position. Sorry, I could have just copied and pasted this. There we go. I'm also going to adjust this camera. I don't think that was enough wiggle, so let's do something in the region of 20 for the camera. We could also put a wiggle on the rotation of the camera. So let's just do an orientation wiggle. We'll do it once a second, but we'll only make it like 2. Let's make it 3 degrees. I find the rotation tends to be much more the wiggle on the rotation seems for me to be a lot more obvious. Okay, so here we go. Now we've added wiggle and rotation to everything. It's maybe gone a bit crazy now, but as you can see, it gives it that real feeling like you're actually flying, like something's happening. I'll maybe reduce the wiggle on the camera a little bit, but you can see the effect of what's going on. It's it's definitely got a much more organic-y, real-life feel. So there we go, part 1 done. We've created the actual scene in 3D space. We've created the fractal noise kind of tunnel in the background. We've created the flying eyeballs. Flapped their wings, so I've got the eyeballs rotating with a bit of scripting, and that's pretty much us ready before we go into the next stage. And in part 2 we will cover off all the stereoscopic work, and also cover off the various options that you have when it comes to making the stereoscopic 3D. So thanks for your time. Hopefully we'll see you back for part 2 very soon. Okay, bye now.